Our friend from Sports Illustrated is back. It's Albert Breer, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you, Albert. How are you, sir?
Yeah. Hey, Rich. I appreciate you letting me pick when I get to do my time. Always good when people, feel at liberty to pick when they got to serve their time. If you know what I'm saying.
I'm trying to figure this one out, Albert. I'm just trying to figure out what you mean by that. I mean, you said you had to take your son somewhere, and I'm like, how about you choose the time? Because I'm a Michigan man, and I respect that sort of stuff. You know what I mean, Albert? No.
Well, I wasn't trying to avoid anything. I was just kind of working around a couple of things.
I mean, actually, we've got a commencement speaker from the University of Michigan. I could call that one up, Albert. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see it over the weekend? Did you see this kid who's got a bright future?
I did not.
Oh,
no.
You did not? No, okay.
You don't want to watch it.
What do you mean you don't want to watch it?
I'm okay with it.
He opened the door.
What do you mean? He just said thank you for letting him pick the time that he could do the show.
Okay. All right, Albert, let's get to some sports discussion. Here's the kid. Roll it. Great kid.
I dreamed of seeing my team beat the Buckeyes. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4.
Yeah, he's going places, that kid. I think he's going places. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you also saw the brilliant signer for the hearing impaired. I had no idea Buckeyes went like this. I had no idea that was the signal for Buckeyes. No idea.
Yeah.
All right.
See, well, things after the last one, things went okay for us.
That's true.
We can dive into that more.
No. That's all right. No, I saw it at the draft. I definitely saw it at the draft. There's no doubt about it. Let's get to the Shedeur Sanders stuff that certainly you put out there this past week and what happened with the Giants in their conversations that I just would love to revisit one more time before we actually start drilling down on who's going to be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Albert, I give you the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think things got a little misconstrued there, to be honest with you. And you know how that works with the aggregation sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think that the experience the Giants had with him wasn't perfect. And the full story, of course, is they, as part of their, and this is common, but as part of their their visits with the quarterbacks, they'll give them an install. And, and they ask them to come back the next day and then they work through that with the player. And one thing that, the Giants have done with quarterbacks is, they'll plant mistakes. And again, this isn't something that's that uncommon, but they'll plant mistakes in there to see if the quarterback catches them. And, my understanding was when he came back, he didn't catch them. Shedeur didn't catch them. And that caused the temperature in the room to rise a little bit. So, it's not why they didn't pick him third overall or why he wasn't the guy that they were trading up for at the bottom of the first round. Certainly there were people in the fall that liked him in the building, but, it is a piece to a much bigger puzzle, of the Giants evaluating all these guys. And I think that was sort of part of the mistake that people made too, Rich, is that everybody was they were all over Shedeur all year. And the reality was they were all over a lot of different quarterbacks. And I did a big story on this week and how they invested so much time and so many resources into getting this right. Their general manager, Joe Shane, was at a college game almost every week during the season, if you can believe that. I mean, it's just the amount of time and resources they sunk in, really starting with when Daniel Jones tore his ACL, in 2023 into trying and getting this right. And there have been fits and starts and, the failed effort to trade up for Drake May, in 2024. And then this year, their efforts at the beginning to trade up to number 1 and then pivoting and deciding, we're going to go with a position player at number 3. And then the effort to trade back into the first round, a ton went into this. And that was just, a little window into a piece of the puzzle for them.
Well, and in terms of where Shedeur wound up and what is your reporting on did the owner say draft him? I mean, because again, the idea that they were maybe looking at him in the 4th round, didn't take him when they had a first shot at him in the 5th round, right, Albert? I mean, What is your reporting there? And then we can actually move on to how that may inform about Shedeur's chances of being the quarterback. in Cleveland?
Well, I think it would be foolish not to look at like the fact that that was their last pick, right? Like I think that does color some of it. Is that if there were people in the building who did want, Shedeur on the roster, be it Jimmy Haslam or anyone else, without trading future assets, this was going to be their last chance to go and get him. And so I think that that was a factor that played into the whole thing. Now, do I know if Jimmy Haslam stomped down and said, draft Shedeur Sanders right now to Andrew Barry and Kevin Stefanski? I don't think that happened. But certainly there are a lot of voices when it comes to this stuff. And look, like this has been the approach the Browns have taken to trying to get the quarterback position right. Like they weren't one of the teams that was in on Matthew Stafford. I think that sort of colors all of this, right? Stafford was pursued by the Raiders and by the Giants. And, there are other teams that obviously the Steelers prominent among them that have been in the Aaron Rodgers thing. The Vikings have been tangentially involved in all of this too. And, so the Browns' lack of involvement in any of these sort of has colored their approach, which has been, we're going to just keep throwing darts at the board and see if we can find one that hits. And that was trading for Kenny Pickett. It was signing Joe Flacco, and it's drafting two quarterbacks. It's drafting both Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. So I think it's a challenge now for them to figure out how to divvy all of them up. But as far as Shedeur Sanders landing on the roster, I do think it's part of what was a larger approach in how they're attacking the position. And I can't say one way or another whether Jimmy Haslam, ordered some sort of code red to draft him. But I do know that there were some people that like the skill set that Shedeur Sanders had, which I think played into them taking him in the 5th round.
Well, I mean, first order of business to have a competition is you got to get everyone on the roster and give them a uniform number. That is now complete, so we now know who's got what and where. So on this front with Gabriel and Sanders and Kenny Pickett, who's wearing number 8, and Flacco getting 15 back. What is your first blush sense of with OTAs right around the corner? How is this going to work? And handicap it for me, if you don't mind, Albert.
Well, first of all, I think this is the first time I've ever had a conversation on any sort of show about what jersey number a 5th round pick is going to wear. So,
well, first of all, because we were discussing this before, Albert, with what's going on with Abdul Carter searching for a number in New York, right? But on top of it, could you imagine if Shedeur made any public sense of wanting a number, what that would mean? Like if he twitches in any direction about something other than football and trying to win this job and keeping his head down, it would cause a national conversation. There would be chats on every single talk show known to man. So I guess that's part of the reason why I bring it up. But it also,
for sure, Rich. I mean, like I can tell you, like our traffic numbers at SI, like you can see it. Like you know what I mean? Like that's why it people talk. I mean, whether as relevant football wise as it is, or it may not be, like it's 100% relevant to the people that are watching us right now.
No question. And the number of people I'm sure you got texts from that would never text you during a draft like me. I got them during a draft. Like, what's up with Shedeur? When I woke up Saturday morning in Green Bay for day 3, I've never received a bunch of texts from people that I would never hear from a draft about who's still on the board for day 3 ever in the 22 years I've done it. So all that said, how does everything work? What's your sense on how things work in Cleveland?
So my sense is that Joe Flacco is going to take the first snap in the spring, which there's some significance to that. I think Mike Tomlin called it pole position last year when he was talking about his own quarterback situation. I think Joe Flacco has pole position here. Now, I think there's such limited work in the spring, and the rules are so strict about what you can and can't do, that it's going to be a challenge for them to find a way to make sure that everybody gets enough work to learn the offense and be in position to compete when they get to training camp. And the interesting thing about this is that, like, if you look at it, the guarantees in Joe Flacco's deal and Kenny Pickett's deal are almost identical to one another. So walking away from either guy would more or less have the same penalty. So even though Joe Flacco gets the first snap in the spring, that doesn't mean like Kenny Pickett won't get the first snap in the summer, or that Joe Flacco is going to make the team if Kenny Pickett wins the job. So you have that, that you take into account. Then you take into account, is one of the rookies, be it Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, ready to be a backup? Like, are you ready to give him that important job where you would want to walk away from one of the veterans? And if they aren't, if you're going to keep both veterans, does that mean you're going to keep 4 quarterbacks in your roster? Do you have any prayer of keep getting either of those guys, Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, to the practice squad? In normal circumstances, Rich, the 3rd round pick, you know this as well as I do, if you're drafted in the 3rd round, you've basically made the team, right? And that's not the case with 5th round pick. But if Shedeur outplays Dylan Gabriel, but Shedeur isn't quite ready to be the backup, like, what does that mean for what does that mean for Dylan Gabriel? Does that mean you walk away from Dylan Gabriel? It's complicated because of the numbers here. We're not even getting to what happens when Deshaun Watson is cleared. It's a complicated situation, and they're going to have to be creative in getting these guys enough work. One solution here, and this is, how complicated this whole thing is. One solution here might be, well, Joe, you played for Kevin Stefanski a couple of years ago, so we're going to give you a little bit less work. But if you're Joe Flacco, are you okay with that? Because there's a new offensive coordinator in Tommy Rees there who you haven't worked with. Are you okay giving the other 3 guys a leg up in the competition if you're trying to win the job? Probably not. It's a challenge, to say the least. And for Kevin Stefanski, and finding a way to make it equitable for everybody to have a chance to go and win the job, and make it fair too for the rest of the team. So you've got a guy who's in uniform and starting in September, who's had enough work to be a starting quarterback in one of the toughest divisions in football, and for a team that, oh, by the way, made the playoffs 2 years ago and has a lot of veteran players like Myles Garrett that aren't going to be too receptive to the idea of wasting a year in the name of a quarterback project.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. Part of your column is taking a look at the numbers of Matthew Stafford's contract. And again, this deal had you have to pretty much figure that with the Browns taking Myles Garrett off of the holdout board, the Matthew Stafford contract staying with the Rams is the biggest ripple we've seen in the offseason pond here because of where he stayed and the other teams that tried for him and then wound up waiting for Rodgers, just to draw a line, right? Through this whole thing. Is quite significant. What did you glean from the numbers of the Matthew Stafford contract that can help inform us here?
It's a compromise, I think. That's the way I look at it. At least he could have gotten a lot more money in Vegas. He could have gotten a lot more money in New York. The Giants and Raiders were both willing to go over $50 million a year over the next 2 years to get him, and give up the trade compensation to facilitate it. And he chose to take less money to stay in Los Angeles, which was the Rams' bet all along. The Rams felt like going through this, and this was part of it, when they granted him permission to go and talk to other teams. They really felt like he valued being in Southern California. His wife, his 4 kids are rooted there now. And he really valued playing for Sean McVay. And in the end, that bet wound up being the right one. And, as I see this, like, football wise, like, I think it makes all the sense in the world. And I think the Rams did well enough by him to say, we're not going to go all the way to where the Raiders went or where the Giants were willing to go, but we are going to do something fair that's going to reflect what you've done. And by the way, the interesting thing about this to me is what really opened the door for this is what they did with Aaron Donald 3 years ago. The deal to redo Aaron Donald 3 years ago was borderline unprecedented. They gave Aaron Donald $40 million in additional money without adding any term to his contract. And they've essentially done the same thing here, where they add $26 million to Matthew Stafford's contract without adding any term. And if you do the math on it, it winds up being about the same, $13 million extra per year. So I think that's how you get to the math there. But I think it's the Rams doing something fair for Stafford. that doesn't totally blow everything up for them. And then Stafford with, a very real acknowledgement that he wants to finish his career in Los Angeles and playing for Sean McVay.
So do the numbers support that it's a multiple year stay, or are we back in this moment again next year? We had Les Snead on the program last week, and he basically said when the Falcons flipped a 2026 first rounder in their direction at the end of the first round of the 2025 draft, they're like, okay, that's enough to make us move out of the first round this year if, and you can finish the sentence. And he definitely helped finish the sentence saying, we don't know what's going on with Matthew year to year.
Right.
But I'm sure if Matthew Stafford looks like the Stafford we've seen the last few years, they'd be happy to have him stay multiple years. Right, Albert? I mean, I don't know what the numbers show you. What are the numbers show?
I can give you a couple things on that. Like, number one, I think that this is very much year to year, but I don't think that's anything new. I think that's sort of where they are with Matthew right now and where Matthew is, and he's older and he's had a lot of injuries. He's got his Super Bowl ring. So I don't think Matthew Stafford is going to play into his 40s like a Tom Brady. So it is very much year to year. I think there's an acknowledgement of that. The contract makes that clear too, and that the $40 million in guaranteed for next year. Now the $40 million for this year is locked in and fully guaranteed, but the $40 million for next year, that doesn't vest until the middle of March. So next year they could very well be back in this space again. Number two, I think the interesting thing about what they did in the draft here, to me at least, is to look at the guy they traded down for, a guy they really liked more than people realize, Terrence Ferguson, the tight end from Oregon, sort of filling the role that they've been looking to fill the last couple of years. And that actually will help Matthew Stafford. 2 years ago, I don't know how many people know this, but they tried to trade back into the first round when they didn't have a first round pick to get Dalton Kincaid, who wound up with the Bills. The next year that continues with that big effort to go up and try to get Brock Bowers in the first round. And Ferguson is that sort of tight end. So even though they did trade out of the first round, they wind up with a piece that's going to help Matthew Stafford, and they think is going to help Matthew Stafford right now. So I think it's sort of towing the line between, being responsible in the way you're building your team, and being responsible and we don't know when Matthew Stafford's going to retire, but we got to keep doing the right thing for ourselves long term and adding that first round pick, while also getting him the sort of weapon to play with this year that they've been looking for the last couple of years.
So what's the sense in the league right now? Because that's two teams, Browns, Rams, that put the first round capital into next year's draft. We all know Howie Roseman's got a gajillion draft choices as well.
Yep.
Who's this for? I mean, is it for Arch? Do you think that Arch Manning could be in there, or he's worthy of that? I mean, we're talking. Again, the quarterback class next year is supposed to be better than this one. Drew Aller's in this mix. Carson Beck, who the heck knows? I mean, Cam Ward went.
Sellers,
right. I mean, Cam Ward went to the U and became the first overall pick from Washington State. So crazier things have happened. What do you think?
I mean, on the Arch thing to begin with, I think we would be ignoring the family history if we assumed that he was going to be in the 2026 draft. I felt this way for a while. I think. For one thing, I think that the idea of making that leap, right, and saying that he's going to be the number one pick, I think it's too big a leap for NFL teams to make right now. They see a big talented kid, and he's a Manning. But I think what a lot of fans have done is, and follow me here, I think they see that big, 60-yard run, 60-yard touchdown run, 67-yard touchdown run, whatever it was, and they were like, oh my God, this is Peyton and Eli with wheels. You know what I mean? Well, do we really know that it's going to be Peyton and Eli, though? We haven't seen nearly enough to know that. And people are acting as if that's automatic. It's really hard to be that good as a passer, as a thinker of the game. Those guys are both at a really high level. So, I mean, maybe Arch is that, but we don't know that yet. And then, again, there's the family history part of it, which is you look at it Eli Manning could have been a first-round pick in 2003. He came back for a fifth year at Ole Miss and played in 2003 and was in the 2004 draft. Peyton Manning could have been the number one overall pick in 97 to the Jets. Instead, he decides to go back, and he's the number one overall pick in 98 to the Colts. So like the family history tells us that these guys aren't going to rush from college. The way Cooper has handled Arch over the years, I mean, the guy had to create a Twitter account to announce that he was committing to Texas. Like, he did not have social media until that point of high school. So, like, I mean, this isn't like the normal attention-seeking kid of this generation. Like, they've done it their way, and they've wanted to really kind of preserve his childhood and preserve, his high school experience and his college experience. And I don't think they're going to run away from that. There's also the fact that the history tells us that, I mean, I think the line of demarcation is 25 starts. Like, guys who have 25 starts or more in college, like, generally do better in the pros. And I'm sure the Mannings are acutely aware of that. So this assumption that he's going to be in next year's draft, maybe it happens, but I think you're making a leap in a lot of different ways if you assume that. Now, that said, if we're talking about the Browns, the Rams, who could be in the mix for quarterbacks next year, there's a lot of promise. There's not like a Caleb Williams where we knew a year ahead of time, like, this guy's going to be the number one pick. But, Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier, Lenora Sellers, Carson Beck, all those guys are names worth keeping an eye on. And now you see, in the fall, who can have the sort of year that Jaden Daniels did. Is there somebody who has that year that comes out of nowhere? The way that Jaden Daniels did, or even Joe Burrow did, and turned themselves into, a really high draft pick. I think all that stuff's in play, and there's a lot of good prospects who have a chance to make that sort of leap this fall.
Yeah, like Cam Ward too, man. I mean, it's not like we were talking at this point last year. Cam Ward's going to be, the apple of everybody's eye in the quarterback spot. But Albert, thanks for the time, and I'm glad to get you out when I promised when you chose when to appear. So I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I got to choose my time. Thank you. I appreciate
of course.
it.
No, and you're taking your son somewhere, so it's nothing nefarious. It's really a process. It's really a process decision.
You saying I should get him a cheeseburger, Rich?
No, I'm saying it's a process decision. and if you decide to erase the text between you and I about this decision, it's nothing nefarious about it, but you have to account. That's all.
Part of my process,
my
right?
Point. Yep. Thanks for the time, Albert. You be well.
All right, thanks, Rich.
It's Albert Breer. Everybody go read all of Albert's material in Sports Illustrated. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.